Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes weekly webisodes. I'm Sara Newman, and I'm so happy you're joining me for this episode of Saturday with Sara. Today, I'm excited to show you a fabulous collection from our friends at Stamperia called Master of Magic. So today we've got pattern papers, we have chipboard die cuts, and we have two sets of beautiful rub-ons. So let's take a closer look, and we can begin with our paper pack. So here we've got a set of 10 double-sided sheets. These measure 8 by 8 inches. Now on the inside front cover, as well as the inside back cover, you've also got some bonus fussy cut elements there too. So let's have a look at these paper designs. I think they are just absolutely beautiful. So true to Stamperia style, this really fun kind of quirky vintage effect. You've got some elements here of steampunk, really beautiful faux texture in here. And you're also going to have some cutout elements here, like you can see with these four, really illustrated on one side with some focal imagery. Then the other side, you've got still some patterns and borders, but you've also got space to personalize those. And I really like the color palette that they're working with here, the hints of gray in among the teal and the red. This is another sheet that I really like. I think you could easily use this as a background, but you can also cut apart the various elements, and then same for the reverse side. So lots of creative possibilities here. This is one of my favorite designs. I think that is just gorgeous. Here are some more of the cutout elements, so some tags as well as circular images. On the other side, you've got a gorgeous harlequin check design there too. So a really beautiful and inspiring collection. Now to go along, we've also got two sets of rub-ons. So we have Believe and we have the Peonies. Now these are of course designed to mix and match with the pattern papers. You can use these individually. You can also of course use them together. And on the back of the packaging, Stamperia always gives you instructions on how to apply those rub-ons, but of course we will take a look at that as well. And then finally, our package of chipboard elements. Well, what I like to do is take them all out of that plastic package and put them onto a couple of pieces of chipboard so that you can really see the designs. Now here you've got some large elements, great for focal images. You also have a lot of really nice smaller elements. You've got some tags and some accent pieces here as well. These can easily be layered up with one another to create a collage effect, or you can use them singly. So as you can see, we have got a fantastic collection today. Everything is totally designed to color coordinate to make it really easy to create beautiful and unique cards. I'm so glad that you're here today, and I'm excited to explore the creative possibilities with you. So come play with us. Let's begin with this card, which has a gorgeous large peony rub-on as the focal with the Believe word rub-on overlapping. And I framed this with a circular chipboard die cut. And although I'm using 3 different pattern papers together on the front of my card, they're designed so nicely so that mixing and matching them is really easy. So on the bottom, covering my card front, is a kind of quilted design, and it's actually the same one that I've used on the inside of my card here. And then I've layered this harlequin design on top, and I've trimmed it slightly smaller than the card front, and then I've matted it onto this teal solid cardstock. Now this comes from the Floral Luxury cardstock pack, and this is what I'm using throughout today's webisode. The colors just matched perfectly with the pattern papers in today's collection. Now what is also nice is the teal is providing a visual space between these two pattern papers, and it really makes it easy to sort of differentiate between those designs. Now the third pattern that I'm using is this beautiful script design onto which I've applied my rub-ons. Now the rub-ons are really easy to use, so let's take a look here. First of all, you'll need to have your surface onto which you're going to apply your rub-on, and I'm just going to demonstrate with a piece of plain smooth white cardstock. Although, of course, this can work on your pattern papers too. And then I've got my rub-on. I've just trimmed this out from the main sheet. The other thing I need to have is a bone folder, some kind of applicator. And this one from Hot Off the Press does the trick perfectly. All right, so the first thing I need to do, when I'm trimming this out from the main sheet, I want to make sure that I'm keeping both of these two layers together. So I have the design on this top piece, and then I've got this liner sheet. So I'll separate those only when I'm ready to put this in place. The back of the design has some stick to it, which is really nice when you're positioning this in place. But if you get your finger on some of that design, it can stick to your finger instead of to your surface. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're handling this. Okay, so I'm smoothing this down in place. I'm going to fold up a little corner of this plastic piece so I have kind of a handle to grab onto. So now it's in place, it's not going to go anywhere, and I can burnish this design in place. And this is just as easy as it could be. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're using a bone folder, you'll generally have a pointy tip. You don't want to use that. You want to use the edge, the side of your bone folder for this. And some firm, even pressure all the way around, especially on the outside edges, and especially if you have some little detail pieces like the leaves, or maybe you have some tendrils on a floral piece. Just make sure you've got all of those on there. Okay, and I'm going to pull this up. When I do this, I'm going to work gently, slowly, because if I find there's any part that didn't transfer, I can put this sheet back down in place and continue. So it's pretty foolproof. All right, there we go. We've got our beautiful design all transferred. Super simple to do, and it really does create a fun element. Now, another thing you can do, as what I've done on the front of my card, is you can layer up your rub-ons. So in this case, I've got this gorgeous floral design, and then I have a word from the rub-on set. So I'm going to take this piece, and since this is all rubbed on and secure in place, I can kind of play with the positioning here. See where I want this to go. Maybe I want this overlapping right like so. So same process as before. I'm going to fold up a little edge of that and smooth this down in place, and then come back with my bone folder and again just burnish this in place. And this is a really simple way to combine your rub-ons together. So one can be layered on top of the other. Okay, let's see if I got this all here. And there we go. So now I've got two of those rub-ons layered on top of each other, and it does provide a really nice effect. And so that's what I've done here. I've got my large peony, and then I've got the Believe overlapping there. Really super simple to do. And I've used this chipboard frame to create a visual space between these two pattern papers. So this is kind of like the matting idea. And what's nice with the chipboard frames is they are a bit thicker, so it's providing some dimension on there as well. And then I've got my additional chipboard pieces kind of overlapping on that frame. You'll notice this flower down here. Now this is also a peony rub-on that I've applied right on top of that pattern paper. And I just love how the rub-ons can add another layer of dimension to a pattern design. And one little tip, when I'm applying a rub-on onto pattern paper, I often try to combine florals with geometrics. So the flower rub-ons work really nicely on top of patterns like a stripe or a dot or a check, or in this case, the harlequin design up here, and up here this script, which sort of reads like a stripe. It's a very subtle design on there. Then for my card inside, as I mentioned, I've got a portion of that same quilted design I used on the card front. And I've also got a little teal cardstock creating a nice easy border here, plus a cutout from the paper pack and a heart chipboard element. A large heart-shaped image always works beautifully as a focal, especially along with this gorgeous background paper. And this is one of my favorite sheets from the paper pack, and I was really excited to use it. So here I've covered the front of my card with the light pink cardstock and then added the floral design right on top. Now the square that you see here is a cutout from the paper pack. So remember, you've got a sheet with 4 of these. Here are the 2 that I have remaining. So on one side you've got some large focal image and then some words. On the other side you've got the option to use the one that's got sort of a border and then the frame and then some open space on there. And since I knew I was going to be using a large focal element, I thought I'll choose the side that doesn't have words or a focal image like on these ones. And so I've attached that to the front of the card with some foam tape. So I've got some dimension there. And then I've got my heart die cut on top. Now this is from the Hearts and Love die set from Hot Off the Press. And this is another one that my mom tipped me off to. So she and I have a lot of matching craft supplies. And I'm really glad because it is such a versatile set. So the large heart, which I've used here, is 3.5 inches wide. And it becomes a gorgeous focal, not just for Valentine's or maybe wedding cards, but a heart is one of my favorite images for lots of themes. And in this case, I'm making an encouragement card. And so the theme works nicely with a heart. Now also in this set, you've got some smaller heart images on here, as well as the word love. And you've got some little leaf accents, which I'm also using in here too. So a couple of tips for working with this delicate heart that you see here in the center. When I die cut her, I'm using the quick release die cut paper. So this comes in a box like this, and it comes on a roll. So you'll simply cut off as much as you need, and then when you're die cutting, what you'll do, you'll take your paper that you're going to be die cutting from, and then you'll take your piece of die cut release paper, and then let's see, I'll just pull off this die and simply position this on top. I like to secure everything down with some of the low tack tape, and that's the one from Hunky Dory, and then run it through my die cutting machine. And the quick release die paper works so beautifully with your intricate dies because it allows for easier release on there. So I don't need this for my outside shape, but for anything really intricate, I really do rely on that. Now the other tip that I would recommend when working with an intricate die, I think that's a bit hard to see, when you're getting ready to glue this in place, because it is so delicate and so intricate, I really recommend using another favorite, the sticky specs. And these are sheets of micro dot adhesive, and they come on large sheets. So what I like to do is just grab my scissors and cut off a portion of one of the sheets. When I pull this back, you'll maybe see there's some really tiny micro dots of adhesive on the orange side, and this is the liner portion. And what I'll do is simply position this down and pull off, and then I've got those micro dots on the back here. And I'll do this in some areas here in the center and along on the edges. And then when I get ready to glue this down, I can position it down, and I don't need to worry about wet adhesive seeping out. I don't need to worry about trying to fiddle with a glue stick. This will hold in place, and it's nice and tidy as well. So that's with the sticky specs, and one of my go-to items when I'm working with something as intricate as this design here. So I've layered these two together and then popped this portion up on some foam tape too. So I've got lots of layers of dimension on there. And then I've got some layered chipboard pieces here with these two elements. And then also with this smaller piece down here, this has some holes in the chipboard, and I wanted to back that with a little bit of green cardstock just so that it sort of stood out from that background pattern. I've got my leaf die cut elements here, and it's all overlapping really nicely. Then for my card inside, I have a strip of floral pattern paper, And then I've added this sentiment cutout from the paper pack, and I've backed this with a leaf rub-on, and then I've got a little chipboard element up here at the top. We've been talking a lot about combining patterns, and another way you can do this is with a stencil applied directly onto your pattern background paper. And that's what I've done for this portion of my card front here. And you can see this really pretty texture design. Well, this is from the Elegant Doily stencil from Hot Off the Press. It's a super simple technique to do, so let's have a look. I'll move aside my card and we can start with our tools. First of all, I'm working onto my craft mat, which I have secured down onto my work surface. In fact, this is always here to protect my table. And I'm also going to need a tool to apply my ink. I'm using a blending brush here. The ink that I used for the card is the Spearmint dye-based ink from Hunky Dory. And it really is important that you're working with a dye-based ink pad. This is really going to blend very nicely. Now, of course, I also need a surface onto which I can do my stenciling. So I'll bring in a piece of patterned background paper and grab my stencil and simply position this down wherever I would like to have that design. Now, you can secure it down in place with some low-tack tape, and I like the Hunky Dory tape. Today I'm going to live life on the edge, and I'm just going to hold it down in place. And I've got my Spearmint ink pad. So I'm going to simply take the lid off and get some of that ink on my blending brush. I'm going to hold this in place, and then just very gently, I'm going to apply the ink through the stencil right onto my patterned background paper. If I need to pick up a little more ink, I can do that. And of course, the more ink and the more time I spend applying my ink, the more intense my design will be. So it kind of depends on if you want something really defined or if you want something a little bit more subtle. So I'll pull this off and you can see how pretty that design is on there. Now, let's take a look at another effect you can get. I'm going to bring in just a piece of plain white cardstock. And in this case, I'll put aside my Spearmint and I'll bring in a darker color. So this is the Stormy Night. And I'm just going to pick up some of that color on the same brush and come in here and apply a bit more. And I wanted you to see something with a little bit starker design, so a bit bolder color. Now this is a pretty intricate stencil design, but what I like about it is how smoothly I can apply my ink through here. So there are no jagged little edges to catch on the bristles. It does really make this super easy. And there we go. Have a look. Gorgeous design, absolutely stunning. So you can use the stencil in its entirety. It's a 6 by 6 inch size. So you've got a lot of area on there. You could use the whole thing. I do really like just using a portion of this, though. I think this looks really beautiful. Super simple to do and a great way to add some texture to your design. So now you can see this perhaps a little bit better. I've only used just a little portion of that, applying it right onto this beautiful background with the floral and the mushroom border. And then on top of the stenciling, I've added some peony rub-ons and the butterfly rub-on, as well as our chipboard elements here. Now this element here has been popped up on some foam tape so that it allows me to tuck in some of those other chipboard pieces just right underneath. And then for my card inside, I have another portion of the stenciling, also with that Spearmint, and this is just going right off the edge of the card. And I've overlapped it with this cutout sentiment from the paper pack, plus a floral rub-on. Now this is overlapping not only my stenciling, but also a bit of that cutout there too. And then I've got a little chipboard heart piece to finish it off. Our final project is a Tuxedo Box design. I really love this one, and I think especially today with our theme of magic, it just works really well. So this is the die that I'm working with. As you can see, you've got 3 metal pieces included here. You've got the card back, the card front, and the crossbar. Of course, hot off the press, they're going to give you a project idea there. And then on the back, you've also got your written instructions as well as your folding and assembly diagram on there. This one is super simple to do. So I'm going to bring in the 3 pieces that I have already die cut. So here's the back, the front, and our crossbar. Now, when you get this die cut, you'll have, of course, your outer shape. You'll also have those score lines on there. So it's really simple to just follow those along and then fold up as indicated on the back of the package. I like to use that same bone folder that we use to apply our rub-ons to get some nice crisp lines on here. So there's the back, here's the front, same idea. Everything is going to be indicated for you on there. And then with our crossbar, you're just folding up on the edges. So the short edges there will get folded up like so. Then from here, you can start assembling. Now, when I assemble this, I really recommend using the extra sticky tape. This is just going to provide a little bit extra hold than a normal double-sided tape. And what you'll do is take your crossbar and you're going to glue that 2 3/4 inches from the bottom of your card. And you'll just have the folded over edges secured in place. So you're leaving up the center section there. So you'll just align that and secure that in place. And then you'll take the front portion, and I put my extra sticky tape on these 2 sides. And then I'll take the liner off of one side first and align this in place. Make sure that that's in there securely, and then remove the second liner and position this down like so. And then you've got your card base ready to decorate. Super simple to do. So here I've die cut the front and the back from patterned papers. And then I've added the focal element, which is one of the square cutouts from the paper pack. And then I've overlaid it with our card dealer magician here. I've also got the card chipboard kind of framing tucked underneath here. So all of these cards are just one piece. And then I've got some more cards down here at the bottom as well. Got a couple of other chipboard elements. And then the flower rub-ons, there's one here, and then there's one just tucked underneath there as well. The word wonder is a cutout from the paper pack. And all along the edges, I've inked with spearmint ink. So the same one that I used with our doily stencil design. And altogether, I think this just makes a really fun card project. And of course, it's also one that stands on display really nicely too. So this is our final card project of the day today. A big thank you to our friends at Stamperia for an absolutely beautiful collection. And a big thank you to you as well for joining me. I'm so happy that you're here, and we are just really glad you're part of our Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, see this webisode on paperwishes.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, have a look in the description box below this video. You'll find a link that will take you to our Paper Wishes webisodes page, and you can see everything I just mentioned. If you enjoyed our video today, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up. It helps people to find our channel. And don't forget to subscribe. We create 3 to 5 videos each week, so there's always something fun to inspire your creative spirit.